Good evening and welcome to Clinical Traders. Please note that this is not advice. No recommendations will be made to buy, sell, or act in any way. Seek professional advice, as you should do with all of my videos. This is just keeping an eye on things that are happening in the world and just some general comments. So do your own due diligence, as they say. So firstly, let me say welcome. Today we're going to look at a number of charts, and we'll focus from an Australian perspective and not so much from an international perspective. But of course, they're all interlinked. So we'll start by looking at the Australian dollar and what's happening with it at the moment, so that we can get a bit of an idea as to how it all ties together. We'll look at the Australian Stock Market Exchange. We might take a look at the Dow Jones Index. We'll look at Bitcoin. We'll take a look at gold. And then finally, we'll look at a couple of stocks that I've been tracking for a while and looking to analyse for the purposes of education. So without further ado, let's get on with it. So we're looking here at the Australian dollar. You can see up here where it's written there. So it's comparing the Australian dollar to the US dollar. You can see what's happened here is that I've drawn in a couple of lines. This is way back in May of 2015. We tap it a few times in September of 17 and in January of 2018. And of course, since then, we've been retracing all the way down here. We've got back down to this previous low here and here. And you can see that we broke through it back in January of this year. And then we quickly reversed and came back up. Now this can either mean that we have a bottom, and I don't mean that in a, I'm not even going to go there, but we have a bottoming process, or it might also indicate that it sets the tone for future price action. Sometimes these are bottoms and you can turn and head up, and sometimes they pave the way for the future. And you can see what's happening here. Sorry, I should have mentioned we're on a weekly chart. Okay, and you can see what's happened here is that we're now back down here into this zone that's supposed to be support. So we're really at a very important point for the Australian dollar. And of course, should that break through and go lower, I think we might be saying goodbye to overseas holidays, as they will become more expensive as we get less value for our money. We'll just zoom in here. Okay, and you can see what's happened. This is where we are today. This is the 13th of May, 2019. I find this very interesting because, what is it today? It's Tuesday, so we've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then we've got the federal elections, which could be a significant event that might determine what happens with price after that point. So it's very hard to tell exactly what's going to happen. If you've been following the Clinical Traders Facebook page, you'll know that I've been commenting on how weak the economy is. So given that scenario, I would suggest it's probably 60-40, 60% chance that we'll actually go lower. And of course, that would mean, technically speaking, that other asset prices should come up. But this needs to be complemented with reduction in interest rates and possibly some quantitative easing by the Australian government in some form. I know Labor tends to want to do this a bit more than Liberal, so you know that might, if Labor gets in, we might see that that assumption made by traders. We might see that fall down. Okay, so I think it's probably appropriate that after looking at that, we should look at gold in Australian dollars. So we'll take a look at that now. So gold in Australian dollars. This one here. Just going to zoom out real quick. So, you know, you hear commentators on the news and so forth. They get these guys, the financial guys, on. They talk about how well the economy's doing. And they don't often talk about how well gold is doing. And in fact, if you hear commentators, they talk about how gold is really lagging and struggling to be of use to anyone and that it's going nowhere. And look, that is the truth, but only in United States dollars. This is not the case in Australian dollars. And in fact, most other currencies in the world, we're seeing the same pattern that you'll see here occurring with the price of gold. And that is that over time, the price is generally increasing. And we can see that, in this case, through this red rising trend line. So way back here in 2007 in July, we've got a price over on the right here of $761. Okay, it's since risen. Current price is up here at 1869, and so this is very healthy. This is a very good indication that the Australian gold price is looking really good, and we should be very happy with that. It's not being reflected in gold miners. Gold miners should be priced much higher. They're not. And I would expect that should the Australian dollar fall, like I showed on that previous chart, not only will that happen, but this will actually break out above. And I think when that happens, we'll see the Australian gold miners really take off. And if you got your head about you might be positioning yourself to take advantage of that. But once again, that's not advice. All right, so keep an eye on that. I won't comment too much on silver except to say that it certainly hasn't reflected the type of price rises we've seen here. In fact, it's gone the other way, where from about this high point, silver actually has retraced and it sits somewhere down here in comparison to gold. So it's got some catching up to do, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happen over the next few years. Okay, let's look at the Australian stock market. It's done very well over the last number of weeks. Here it is here. You can see ultimately this is the high way back here in October of 2007. So it's been a while since we've been up here. And I've just drawn that in as a bit of an area there where we might see some resistance. Once again, if the Australian dollar drops, we might see this push through up here. It's going to have a hard time getting through there, I think, because it hasn't been up there for so long. I think we'll hit it. Well, I don't know that we'll hit it, but I expect it will. If it does get there, I would think it would pull back. So that's the Australian share market. I've been posting some things that I've been looking at. So we got pretty high here. This was in August last year, 2018. And you can see the massive fall it had. I mean, how convenient that it just stopped right here on this rising red trend line. You can see that it's touched it. Well, started here, but it's touched it here, here, here. That's what's 5 times, and now 6 times. So it's held traders in good stead as they've tried to buy down here and write it up. What I did also, just so you're aware, I'll delete this and show you exactly what I did here. Delete that. So I highlighted this. I took a copy of it. I cloned it, as they call it in this program. Cloned it. Okay, and then I simply dragged it up here. And I think it's quite a coincidence, isn't it, that we see that we get these touches all the way along here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we call this a channel. It's heading higher. Is it possible we could get all the way up and touch it again? Absolutely possible. That would require obviously a breakout above this zone, this red zone, and its resistance. We'll see what happens. Looking at other markets around the world, I think this is going to pull back. I don't know how far. Let me just delete that. That's really a meaningless line. But we might look for somewhere in this area here, or perhaps it could be all the way over here, which would put us October next year. It's a long way away, so we won't look that far ahead, but that could happen. All right, so that's the Australian market. And by the way, we are looking at the long-term weekly chart, so we'll see what happens. Okay, we'll switch over to the one that I know a number of you are looking forward to seeing, and that's Bitcoin. We'll look at it in US dollars. You can see what's happening here. Once again, we've got this long-term chart. So this was that run we saw all the way up to 20,000, way up here. You can see it over on the right here, 20,000. We've crashed back down, and of course, I spoke earlier about what Bitcoin could do. Okay, and I'll get rid of these. I should have got rid of these. These are all my buys and sells in Bitcoin. So that's our weekly look. I did post the daily, but we'll have to take a look at that. And I had actually originally drawn in trend line down through here. Perhaps it started there, like so. Okay, we spoke about how it broke out. And I actually was saying that I think it's going to top out around about here. Well, how wrong I was. Okay, so if I can just draw that in, no, which one is it? This one here. No, it's not so, it's the eclipse. Okay, and so you can see I was looking at this zone as being an area where we really could hold up. But now that is support, so we'll just drag that across. In fact, you could probably drag that up there, seeing as you've got that there. So, you know, it's possible that we could see from here that Bitcoin comes back down to perhaps here somewhere. Now, that doesn't mean at this date, it just means that we'll get there at some point. I do still expect that to pull back at some point and come back down and to perhaps touch this point of support, and from there head higher. But we'll have to wait and see. Originally, I was suggesting that, you know, while we were here, we might come back and pull back to here or here. That hasn't happened. In fact, it's broken, as you can see, straight through, and it's a very bullish move. I mean, that alone is up, what, it's about 35% just in that time there over the last few days. So what a move. We'll just zoom out a bit more, looking for perhaps some support higher. Right, you can see here that we may look for perhaps this previous high. That would put us at pretty much 10,000. Okay, you have got this node that sticks out beyond. This could provide some resistance here. That would support the price pulling back before taking off again and having another crack. I think it would need some fundamental news though to do that. So we wait and see. Okay, so that's out looking at it from a daily perspective. That move is extremely aggressive, and I'm not really sure the reason why. I haven't done the work to find that out. Okay, so let's have a look at a couple of stocks, some specifics, just to keep this thing moving. I really want to try and avoid videos being too long. So the first one we'll look at is Evolution Mining. I posted this the other day in the trading page there. Now we'll go back to the 1 weekly look. Okay, so that's the longer term look, and you can see here I actually did draw this in on the brief video I posted. I did fail to mention that we were looking at a weekly chart, and I said that it could come down here and we could see it turn around at this point, and of course it has done that thanks to some price rises in Australian gold price. Looking at this, I'll zoom further back out so we can see a bit further back in time. And you can see that it stretches a long way back. I think it goes further back than that, but anyway. All right. So what do we expect? If we clone this again, let's see if there's some kind of pattern there. Just going to clone that. We'll just see what happens there. Yeah, you see, you've got a bit there. If you were to put it there, it's not as convincing that we're going to go that high. We might be better off using this one here. So you can see that it touches here, probably touches there and here, so maybe we could expect it up here. Very hopeful. We'll see what happens. I think if we get that price breakout for the Australian gold price, then yes, absolutely, we could see this take off to the upside, and we'll see what happens. Now, what I did was I went back and I looked at a number of other gold mining stocks that to see if basically this pattern of hitting this rising trend line was being repeated in other stocks. So we'll take a look at a few more. One is Newcrest Mining. That's the biggest miner in Australia. So here it is. Click on that one. So you can see here, if I scroll further back, there it is there. Rising trend line, taps it, taps it, taps it, tapped it again here. And now we're at that critical point where, you know, once again, if the Australian gold price does break through, this will take off. Okay, we'll wait and see. It may stop at this previous high briefly. Okay, you can see that it touches it here, here, here. So that will provide resistance. That might be an initial target, but I think ultimately if we get the breakout that we're looking for, this is going higher. We've got a classic stock market setup here called a cup and handle, where we see this shape that makes a cup, followed by the handle that sits on the side of the cup. This one has taken a long time to play out. The longer they take to play out, so this is from November 2012 through to today, so that's what, taken 5 years to play out. Usually that indicates we're going to get a really good strong move, and obviously I'd love to see that. So that's Newcrest Mining, and by the way, the Australian gold mining sector strongly reflects this shape. I posted that about a week ago and said that we're looking at possibly this could break out. You know, we're extremely close. And so this is a weekly chart, so we're looking at possibly happening within weeks. If we don't get that breakout in the Australian dollar to the south, heading down, and if we don't get that breakout in Australian gold to the north, this will retrace, and we'd be looking for it to come back down here and tap this again, and see what happens when it does that. Okay, another one, Regis Resources. Take a look at that one, and you can see we've got the same shape playing out here, where we've got this strong uptrend, tap, tap, tapped it again. What a buying opportunity that turned out to be. You've got this horizontal support zone starting over here, tap, 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 broke out, came back, tried again, finally broke out, and this just keeps trying to head higher, you'll notice. Hopefully we'll see that happen again here. Price already has got up to $4.58, around about there. Profit target could be somewhere up here. Retrace and bang, off we go. But really, we don't know how this will respond to gold price heading higher in Australian dollars. So we wait and see. Another one that I've been watching, very keen on, is RSG, Resolute Mining. And of course, in all of these stocks, fundamentals play a large part. So here's Resolute, same time frame. Here's that same point. Actually, no, it was back here, but you can see that it didn't go with the other stocks. It stayed low for a while and then finally really took off and went for it. So that's a nice rise from way down here at 25 cents up to $2.30. What a massive move. So we'd love to see that again, of course. Once again, though, you can see that this stock, since that time, has underperformed other major gold miners. So tap, tap, tap. We get this rising line through here. I actually extended that all the way down to here to see that it did match up. So this is now some fairly solid support in here. We're really at an important point. If this breaks out here, look, don't be surprised if we get a really strong move like we did down here, and that would be fantastic. But we need to wait and see how that plays out. Equally, it could break down through here. This might provide support again for a fourth time, but we need to see what happens. Okay, so that's RSG. And finally, West African Resources. I thought I'd go through this one because I did make a video on it. And you can see where we are here. So we've got that support down here. We've got tap, tap, and then we tapped here again. And you can see that from there it took off. Broke out here and then kept on going on really good strong volume. It's since pulled back and now it's looking to try and get higher again. Yeah, we'll see what happens with this. I think it's going to take a little while to get up here. Unless, of course, gold breaks out. I think probably this is one that might rely a bit more on the US dollar because they are based in Africa and their gold sales are in US dollars, so that might impact, and all of their fees and all of their costs are in US dollars, and so it may not may not eventuate so quickly. We would need to see the US dollar tank for this really, I think, to go. We'll wait and see what happens though. Obviously, there's some resistance up here, here, taps, and 44 cents. Target, look, it'd be great if it got there, but we'll wait and see. We'll remain nimble, and of course, we'll see what happens. Okay, so I might take a moment and look at a couple of other stocks that you guys have been interested in having a look at. We'll start with Kogan. You guys have probably shopped at Kogan. Let's have a look at that. Okay, so once again, long-term chart, looking really healthy. Okay, so we won't focus too much on what's happened in the past. We know what happened. This is when they were going gangbusters, internet sales and all the rest of it. And then here we had some worry about what was going to happen in terms of financial developments, and I think their sales perhaps dropped a little away a little bit. And then, of course, we got this move here. So this is looking really healthy. Headwinds include tariffs and things like that, general market sentiment and so forth. But generally speaking, looking pretty good. You can see that we've got a bit of an uptrend line here. You can tack it all the way back here. You can see that, coming through here. If it was to ever drop down, we might look at a buy here. Okay. Could also place the bottom just here, and we could look at this opportunity as well. Perhaps we come up here. This could also be a target somewhere along this rising trend line. So if this was to come down, you would absolutely be thinking of buying, in here. Anywhere along this line, I think would provide an opportunity. But anything can happen. Could break through too. We wait and see. But this is a really strong looking chart. Go to the daily. You can see, today, for example, was a down day on the stock market, and yet it rose. All right, so that's really positive for this stock. If you're holding it, stick with it, I reckon. Okay, let's go back to our weekly. Another one was Seek Employment. See what's happening with them. You can see they've also been doing well in recent times. Our weekly chart. So we'll wait and see. We'll play with this a little bit here. So you can see that tap, and then finally breaks down here. So these rising trend lines always break down at some point, and then from there you look for a bottom. Okay. Some people would argue that if you you measure from the high to the trend line, perpendicular, that same distance will be achieved on the way down. You can see that it actually went past it, but it does match up with where a lot of trading occurred. That's what this red line indicates, and this bar here. So you could argue that yes, it did work, but it certainly wasn't the bottom. The bottom was way down here. Okay. Since then, it's turned around, heading north. So that's really good. Okay, so let's go to the next one, Treasury Wines. I always forget the code for this thing. It's TWE. Treasury Wines. Yep. Okay. Okay, not performing so well here. Trend line going up. Breaks down here through here. This is a pretty common trend at this time because this was when we had some panic through October, November, and into December. Down here where it turned around and head back up. But it really has underperformed, so they must have some issues internally. You might look to see what happens down around this area here. Okay, maybe you'll look for some sort of buying signal, and then it might turn around. Depends what happens with the economy. By the way, a lower Australian dollar probably would help. So, I mean, we may even see it turn around here over the next little bit. You can see you've got a bit of support through here at the bottom of that volume node. So, maybe it's a buying opportunity right now. You'd need to position yourself before the election if you were going to take that opportunity. But then you've also got that risk that you just don't know. So, if you're a trader, you'd be arguing you'd buy a little parcel here and see what happens over the weekend. And then if it was heading up, maybe you'd have another crack at it and add to your position. But if it fell down, you might say, no, I'm out of this, and get out, sell it, cut your losses, as they say. Just trying to think of another one that people have been looking at. BHP, one of Australia's largest companies. Okay, it's done fairly well. We'll stretch this out a bit further. So you can see clearly a trend up. And way down here. Wouldn't you love to have bought down there? Just make those touch. So this might pull back all the way to here. Okay, you can see this volume node coming out. So that might be a position that you look to get in. You'd love to see it literally hit that red line right here. Okay, in an ideal world. If it was, even if it was down here, all right, where you've got all this previous buying and selling to act as support, and then from there, it's possible it could turn around and head higher. We'll clone that, have a look at it, and see that it matches up. Yeah, so look at that. 1, almost 2, 3, 4, touches it 5 times on the way up. So if you were to buy it, say here or here, you might look to see that it get back up there. Okay, this price, by the way, is $34.50. If it's down here, $33.55. So wait and see what happens with that one. Another one was Westpac Bank. You can see, compared to BHP, the trend here is definitely down. After the Royal Commission, actually probably even before that. And so you can see that just a couple of weeks ago, it topped out here again, couldn't get through, retraced back down, and now we're back down here. Now if we clone that, let's see if that matches up on the downside. Drag that over here and see if we're getting, okay, so there you go, we've got a channel. Okay, and we'll just go off auto here. So we might see that this here, for example, ends up right down here. I don't think the banks are a buy at all, by the way. I think they're looking pretty dodge. It's just no one to lend money to. I mean, we're all strapped out, so that's the way it's going to be. So Westpac announced a 22 billion half-year loss around about here, and then from there it was thanks for coming. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, we also have this upward trending line here. It could hold something like this, might bounce, get squeezed into this little triangle or flag, break to the upside. That's a possibility too, but we wait and see. I'm not convinced, and I think if Labor get in, that's going to offer headwinds to all of our banks. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. If you enjoyed this video, I'm asking you to give it a like. If you know of anyone who'd be interested in this stuff, who's a friend of yours, and you want them to join the group, send me a message and we'll get them involved. Subscribe, all those things. We'll try to update in another week. Thanks for listening.